few years ago, the Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown was on the bestseller list. Everybody was talking about his controversial story about how Leonardo da Vinci painted the famous Last Supper in code. And I won't go into all the code because this is not a sermon about the Da Vinci Code, but more about the painting. It's a story that I think is true, but even if it's not, there is truth in the story. The painting took many years to complete while Da Vinci was living in Milan. It's a painting that's been reprinted many times, which shows Jesus and the 12 apostles reclining at a table on the night before he died. It's said that Da Vinci took great care in selecting the models for Jesus and the various apostles. One day, as Da Vinci was in the cathedral in Milan, he saw a young man in the choir who reflected Da Vinci's idea of how Jesus would have looked. He seemed to radiate a sense of love, tenderness, care, compassion, innocence, kindness. Arrangements were made for the young man, whose name was F.Hoye, to sit as the model for Jesus. Years went by, and Da Vinci had still not completed his painting. He was looking for someone to model Judas. He was looking for a man whose face was streaked with despair, wickedness, greed, sin. 10 years after starting the painting, he found a man in prison whose face seemed to have all the qualities of Judas. And consent was given for the prisoner to be the model. Leonardo worked feverishly for days. But as the work went on, he noticed that the prisoner was getting extremely agitated. And Da Vinci asked, "Well, what's troubling you?" The man buried his face, convulsed with sobs, and said, "You don't remember me, do you? I was the model for the Lord Jesus." This miserable man and the innocent choir member were the same person. The man had made choices in his life that were reflected even in his physical appearance. Lent is a time for you and me not to look at our physical self in a mirror, but look at the soul. Look at our soul to see how things may have changed over the years and how we have modified ourselves. Sometimes we just deny the physical changes that take place. A few years ago, someone was looking at a picture I had with John Paul II. There I was in all my monsignorial splendor with the Pope, and this person said, "Is that you in the picture?" I defensively said, "Well, the Pope has changed too." We all change over the years. But again, Lent is not concerned with our physical changes, but our spiritual ones. Have we grown spiritually or not? Have I let my prayer life slip? Have I allowed bad habits to creep into my life and maybe not even being aware of them? In the gospel, we heard of the 40-day retreat that Jesus had in the desert. In a sense, you and I as church are beginning a 40-day retreat that we call Lent. It's a time to reflect on who we are, what we have become, and what we're called to be. How do you want to improve your spiritual life? The time for change has begun.